Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome. We're so glad that you're here. My name is Katie Gideon, and I will be the on-camera facilitator for our first July monthly setup social. I want to give a huge shout out to my co-facilitator in the chat, Bailey. We're excited. I mean, spoiler alert, it's going to be a me, Bailey, Maya weekend. So if we are not to your liking, you may want to sit this weekend out. But we are super excited to be here. We're super excited to set up a new month. It's always fun. It's always exciting. It's always great to tackle a new theme. I love seeing all of our returning socialers in the chat. We are so glad that you're here. You guys put a smile on face. And it's fun seeing again where everyone is from. And then I saw that we had at least two new people. Becca and Mary, welcome. We love our first time socialers, or even like this is your first time at a monthly setup, first time at a social, first time in a while. We would love to. Ooh, and Crystal, sorry, I missed that one. And so we want you to participate in as much or as little of this as you want because it is a sensory overload. So if you want to share in the chat, make sure it's set to everyone. That goes to the larger Sonder fam on the social, and that really is where all the magic happens. And then if it just comes to hosts and panelists, that comes to just myself and Bailey. We are always happy to answer any questions. Or maybe if you're just not feeling like putting all of your thoughts and feelings and emotions out into the larger world, you can use that as a slightly smaller space just to feel better. And so when I talk about it being an overload of the senses, you guys get to get comfy, but I'm going to be talking on camera. So if I am too much, you can mute me. If the music is too much, you can mute it. If the chat is too much, you can close it because we want you to work on what you want when it comes to the setup here. We're kind of going to go through a couple different prompts. And so please continue to use the chat if you want, but we also know this is time that's set aside for you. So maybe you really just want to kind of dig into the journal and you just need a little bit of inspiration here or there. Or really it's because you've set aside this hour, 15 minutes to work on just you. So, just as a quick heads up, it's that kind of mid-year review and reset. We have some really great offers there, especially if you're interested in trialing the Jenny Coach, similar to the promotions that we've been working on. We know it's great. I know Bailey is a big fan. So it's just something to consider. And you'll also see this brought up in the other events. But if you ever have any questions on this, please reach out to concierge@siliconsonder.com. And as always, be kind and courteous to yourself and others. No promotions or spam. Respect everyone's privacy. No hate speech or bullying. Limit repetitive product and accessory questions. And we only say that as a bit of a minimum. We know there are other apps that everybody is doing, other ways to kind of support each other. And we fully support that in the chat and that type of connection thing. We just don't want it to detract from the social that we have here. So that's why we just ask to kind of limit it. But we love talking about it. We know that people connect on other apps. Same thing with other affirmations, recommendations. Bailey and I created a very, very small book club of she and I. And so we talk about all the fun things and we don't want that to not happen, but we don't want it to be the main focus. And as always, redirect customer care inquiries to our team, hello@silkensonder.com. Bailey and I have some information, but we don't have anything specific. But we're always happy to kind of bubble up some things to headquarters, but they're quite responsive. They read everything, and so it's best to reach them there. And as always, Sonder Socials are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community. You're responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. So if you are joining us kind of for the first time or in a while, we want you to come exactly as you are. And so if you've had kind of a not so great day, if you're just not feeling your best, if you're not at kind of all cylinders, that is perfectly fine. We want you to celebrate all of the wins, the losses, and everything in between. We want to be here to provide some extra love and support and thoughts as we go. But if you need to set some of those boundaries, especially around the theme or some of these other things things, please do so. Do not revisit something that happened last month that is going to put you in a bit of a tailspin. We want you to leave these with a little bit more optimism and a little bit more excitement because we know everyone has had a rough time, but we just want to be here to support you during those. But we also want to be able to celebrate some of those amazing milestones, especially as we transition from a new month to from month to month, but also kind of seasons as well as just general kind of heading into the summer and all of those kind of fun things there. Without further ado, we have a new theme. And July is Independence. And really, I think it's obviously a little bit on the call a spade a spade situation. But I also think it's a great continuation from our previous themes, moving from the simplicity to the authenticity, then into purpose, and now into independence. And so I came across this particular quote, which was never lose focus for what you want for yourself. And don't be afraid of making mistakes. After coming off of purpose, and I think this ties in a little bit with kind of the particular purpose journey that I had, is that we know that our purpose is going to evolve in different chapters, different milestones. A lot of us will find purpose in um, partners, in children, in friends, in families. But at the end of the day, it's also the opportunity to focus a little bit more on ourselves. And a lot of that is finding kind of the self spark, the self purpose. And I kind of struggle with the waiting for everything to be perfect before I did something. And so that was kind of my other kind of purpose motivation. And so that's why I really liked this quote because I feel like to me it tied this kind of last quarter themes together. And anytime I can kind of tie and build on the previous themes, I like to do that. But at the same time, I also wanted to focus a little bit more on the definition, looking through the lens of kind of self-independence, but not in that traditional sense of like running off and doing all those things. It's more of the kind of focusing on what you want for yourself. And I do think that ties really well into Mayha's letter, which I highly recommend for the idea of it's always a great introduction. And the things that really stuck out to me were owning my decisions, trusting myself, and creating a space for the things that truly matter, which, like I said, this just goes hand in hand with that momentum that we've pulled from purpose, as well as kind of focusing a little bit more on our individual selves. And at the same time, it's saying no to things and the courage to create boundaries. I know our amazing Sonder fam, a lot of people have really, really worked very hard with saying no to things and setting those personal boundaries. And so I do think this is an opportunity to celebrate those boundaries that we have set. Saying no when we're tired, saying no when we don't want to do it, saying no when we know when, saying no to when we know, KNOW, that we want to do something else or that it's going to spark that kind of vitality in us. And we know it's not going to really work for us. So this is an opportunity to kind of celebrate that. And then I also liked this again, the idea of embracing independence, but not in the sense of isolating yourself. It's about creating the space for you to find your purpose and for you to kind of express the way you want to live and those values. So I do think this is absolutely key because I think sometimes in the literal translation you think of when it comes to independence, it's that breaking away. I think of it absolutely being like, I need to be more independent when I was a kid from my parents. So it isn't that. It is the not isolating yourself. It is now building within these boundaries and owning your kind of ideas and your purpose and your courage and your confidence and your enthusiasm to then create that space for where you're living. And so tonight's agenda, we're going to work on the monthly acrostic poem and we're going to do our June reflections with those July intentions and then the mood tracker and the habit tracker. And I really appreciate all the chat that's going. I'm going to have to go back and just double check and review because you guys provide such amazing insight as well into the theme. And I certainly learn a lot from that. But without further ado, please turn to page 19 in your July journal. We're going to do that amazing acrostic poem. But don't worry, if an acrostic poem is not your vibe, we have some other suggestions. But an acrostic poem is just, again, the association, 12 words or phrases for independence using the letter of each of those within independence. And you can brainstorm this, you can get ideas, inspiration, and you can get as creative as you want, or it absolutely can be some of those just like single word motivation. But it's an opportunity to kind of figure out how you see independence. So again, this is what page 19 looks like. I actually thought I did the AI generated one, that's the one on the left, and I actually thought it was quite lovely. I thought it was really nice, and I think again it helped with some of those because y'all, I ran out of E words. They became really hard and it was so redundant, and I just struggle with those where I just want to make all the E words the same, and I may do that. And then I have now come across these amazing thesaurus pigeons. And so here are other kind of synonyms to maybe help a little bit more on that. And then I've pulled the definition of independence there. And then, as always, if the acrostic poem isn't for you, the letters have become quite a popular thing. So you can write a letter saying goodbye to June. I am sad that June is leaving. I was born in June, so June is my month. It is my jam. No offense, July. The best thing that July has for me is that it comes after June. Or you can fill in your independence definition on page 3. That's the example listed here. Or you can think about kind of small moments that celebrated your independence under that lens of not isolation, but some of those things where you were really kind of courageous and you embraced some of those things. You maybe made a mistake, but then you kind of corrected for that, or even a celebration of um, the boundaries that you're setting. And yes, if I need to go back to other slides, just let me know. I will do that, but I'm going to give you guys some time to work on this, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And yes, I would absolutely agree, Alana. It is a bit tough, especially when you're dealing with like what, four letters, 5 letters, 4 letters. It's wild. I always really, really struggle with the repetitive ones. So thank you everybody for sharing. Really appreciate it. And I think even Bailey brought up a good point is that you can actually, maybe you don't want to do the whole word in one sitting. Maybe you can come back to it each week and kind of add to it for that type of inspiration. But it is just kind of a nice little way to work on it, as a way to kind of just get a general idea of thoughts and feelings and initial reactions to the theme. So now we are going to move into those setup pages. So please join me on page 8 in your July journal, and we're going to reflect back on June. And so this is our opportunity to celebrate those wins, acknowledge those challenges, as well as kind of relive some of those favorite moments. And then what I like is the action item of the what do I want to start, stop, or continue. And so you can look at this as a single page with each of those different ideas, or you can look at it as, again, of a connection, or at least the springboard for the start, stop, and continue as we move into the intentions. And again, as I move through the slides, please feel free to continue in the chat to respond to the prompts as we go, as you kind of work through it. That's what we're here for. That's what we're here to help about. So when it comes to reflections, this is definitely a monthly, basically rosebud thorn exercise, which I always really like. And so it's an opportunity to acknowledge those challenges, maybe something that didn't go so well, as well as celebrate the wins. And then obviously it's an open book test, so to speak. It's not a test at all, but using that expression of use your phone, use your calendar. You can kind of go back through, especially with the favorite moments, because we like to capture a lot of our favorite moments. And really, what I tend to notice the trend with is my wins are like actual things I've accomplished, whereas the challenges tend to be a little bit more of like mindsets, or kind of where I didn't quite meet the mark when it came to my mindset, my emotions, or any of those things. And then the ability to turn some of those things, you can absolutely leave June in its place, or you can carry some of that motivation forward with the start, stop, and continue. And there are a couple different ways to look at that. And also, just because there are all those lines there does not mean you need to come up with something for every single one of them. And I also like to use it a little bit as kind of a trend idea. Like, were you able to come up with the wins really quickly? Did you start with the challenges and those came quickly? Do you have more challenges than you have more wins? Because I feel like sometimes that's how you can kind of figure out what type of month you had, and maybe if you need to make some changes, especially when it comes to how you then approach the next month. But what I do like about the start, stop, and continue is, of course, you can absolutely answer it as this is something I want to do. This is something that I don't want to do. This is something I want to keep doing. Or you can kind of take it that next step and ask yourself why. So you want to start something, and here's why. And then ask yourself again how you're going to do it. Because the start is acknowledging something that you want to do. So now you have a new goal. The why can actually be carried over into your intentions page, which we're going to do next. And then the how can be supported with the mood tracker or the habit tracker or some of those weekly setup pages where you break down what you want to start, stop, and continue. And then at the same time, it can be a kind of to-do list or kind of that type of format. It could be a little bit more on the prose side. We love to embrace stickers. I strongly feel pictures are worth 1,000 words. So there can be that kind of idea there. And then I think I saw Kimberly in the chat, but I think this was hers at the bottom, where it was kind of narrowing down on what you're going to do for the weekly plan with the starting a new routine, continuing good housekeeping, and then breaking it down into the 4 different weeks of how you're going to support that, as kind of that how. So it was a combination of the what you wanted to do, the how, and the why all at once. So I am going to give you some time to work on this, and we will see you soon. Like I said, if you want to share in the chat, we would love to celebrate those wins with you, as well as acknowledge those challenges. So again, we can decide, are we going to take it with us? Are we going to kind of learn from it? Are we going to use it as motivation? Or are we just going to let it go? And we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Loved seeing definitely the wins and the favorite moments, but also again acknowledging some of those, new changes, new ways of kind of moving forward, kind of spurring from the challenges. So thank you, everybody, for sharing. And so you can absolutely leave this page as is, what you've learned, what you've seen, what you've reflected. Or you can carry some of that over into the July intentions. So please join me on page 9 in your July journal. And we're going to set up our intentions. And so my style for the way I approach these journals is I do like to tie the different sections together because I am a planner and I like backup plans and I like safety nets and I like rip cords and all those amazing things. So if I can somehow compound the thoughts and feelings and support it in a bunch of different sections and kind of boost it all together, that's what I'm going to do. So a lot of the examples that I'm going to share are kind of in that style, but that is just my particular preference. So there is no right or wrong way to do this. There's no right or wrong way to journal. So maybe that is something that can be helpful, or maybe you're like, Katie, don't got time for that. I just want to look at this section by section. Do it. It's whatever is going to be the most helpful for you as we focus on what we want to accomplish in July. And so you can always use the theme to set your intentions. You can also maybe focus on a particular area. You can use the names of song, lyrics, your how, kind of always asking yourself a question. How do you want to feel? How do you want to approach this category? How can it help support the start, stop, and continue? And sometimes it's the opportunity to really embrace the creative side with some of those stickers or images or that kind of idea there. Excuse me. Or maybe you want to embrace the National Month theme. And so these have some really fun themes. I like the grilling month, the anti-boredom, peaches. Who doesn't love peaches? I saw there was another Oklahoman. I always associate with summertime the Porter peaches, which are amazing. Ice cream month, as well as some of the other ones. So you can always incorporate it that way. And just because these are listed in the categories here with the spiritual health, personal life, physical health, key relationships, money management, or professional goals, you can change those. Maybe you want to focus a little bit more on your mental health instead of spiritual health. Maybe it's a different physical health goal and you want to focus specifically on your heart health or kind of other management health. Maybe you want to focus on a specific relationship. Or maybe you are just in a different chapter of your life and professional goals is not the priority. Maybe it's summer goals, learning goals, gardening goals, the vacation goals, whatever really fun goal you want to focus on. And so you can always embrace this a couple different ways. I am a big fan of duality. So the fact that you can do something and let go of something, I think is great. Same thing with the more something or less of something. So you can kind of break up your boxes that way. And then the idea of embracing movement or kind of some sort of activity or an action, but then on the flip side, making sure that you're resting or you're refreshing or you're kind of embracing some of those things. Maybe you are not quite ready to commit to something yet, or you have kind of long-term kind of intentions. Sticky notes are amazing. That's what they're there for. So you can kind of take those from month to month to carry them through. Or maybe, like I said, you're just kind of figuring out what you want to do this month and you're not ready to commit to it until the calendar officially turns over to July 1st. And then at the same time, maybe again, you're wanting to embrace something or release something, or asking that you want to feel this particular way. So you're going to work on it this way. So help kind of compound and support those intentions. And then tying specifically into what habits are you going to incorporate through the habit tracker or your weekly habits and activities. Who doesn't love stickers? So these look great with the collage of stickers. The one on the right is actually from our digital subscription. So they've been able to outline and kind of add a fun personalized touch there. And then the one on the left, the overall goal for this individual was to reduce stress. And so that was the entire April intention. And so they repurposed all of the sections with this is how they're going to reduce stress in these areas. And they have their kind of motivational affirmation followed by the action of how they're going to do that. And then I think if you've attended one of my monthly setups before, Heather, love it. I think it's such a great focus. And then the one on the right, you all know I am obsessed with this one and the idea of it. I still haven't figured out the best way to repurpose it. I kind of went with birthday cakes and it looked really silly. But it's that kind of opportunity to remove the categories and just turn it into a manifestation or looking into that crystal ball, an opportunity to kind of embrace or kind of, you know, manifest or kind of put out into the universe what you want. And so these are some great ideas. So I'm going to give you some time to work on this, but I would love to hear what intentions are you going to focus on? What are you going to take a look at? How are you approaching this page? Is it kind of tying with your word of the year? Is it embracing the theme? Is it kind of a continuation? Or are you looking at something completely different? And we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Love seeing just the conversation in general, especially, and I think it's a testament to how you can kind of combine all of these things to help be your best accountability buddy. And that is using the app in kind of collaboration, which is the inspiration here, to then kind of see it in the socials. And then again, putting kind of the names and the personalities there is really great, as well as then kind of looking at that power of pen to paper and those things to kind of provide the motivation there as well. So thank you everybody for sharing. We are now going to flip over to the trackers. So again, I always find the reflections page quite straightforward. I certainly struggled with the intentions page because I just didn't know really what to do with it, what the focus was. And it was always a little bit intimidating for me as well to kind of put that much pressure, I feel like, on the upcoming month and having to decide it kind of all now. And I think it absolutely changed my perspective to get a little bit of the different motivation. How can I stop, start, and continue to carry these things forward? But also giving myself a little bit of grace when I didn't get it right at the beginning of the month and realizing that was absolutely not what I needed, not what I wanted, not what was going to be helpful, and going through and completely changing it either mid-month or even at the end of the month where it was like, yeah, definitely didn't get it right there. So please join us on page 10 because now these are ways that you can kind of help support those intentions, help support some of those weekly goal setting that you kind of want to focus on. Or it's also just a really cool way to kind of take a look at different variables. I'm a data nerd. I love it. So the fact that you can do multiple variables in this and just kind of see some of the trends so that by the end of the month, you can have some data analytics on what you felt about the month, how you're feeling, because you can come up with six different moods, or maybe you just have two moods. Maybe it's the hee hee and the not hee hee. This is my one of my favorite little pictures to have with it, and so that's where I even joke with the like. I only focus on two at the moment. So you can pick two to three of the not as positive, not feelings, one neutral, and maybe two to three of the positive. You can again focus on that theme. You can fill in every emotion that came that day, or fill in whichever was the most strong or the strongest. Ooh, English hard right now. And again, stickers, doodles, colored pencils, pens, anything that is fun, anything that kind of makes you happy. And don't worry, we'll come back to this feelings wheel, but you can always use this for inspiration. So it's the wonderful one in the circle. And really, what I found out kind of for me as I started tracking my moods like this is I was putting myself on this chaotic roller coaster of extremes. I was embracing the kind of most negative feeling, and then on the flip side, coming up with the most positive feeling, and then kind of sitting and stewing and embracing all the up and downs. And I was like, I am worn out by the end of the day with all of these emotions. So that is where I purposely selected some that I considered a little bit more neutral. So, instead of the hostile or the agitated or the aggravated, I went with the like inconvenienced or the annoyed, kind of those lesser ones. Same thing with I wasn't completely excited, I wasn't ecstatic, I wasn't all those things. It was more of I was content. And so I realized by kind of embracing that and using that as a reflection exercise, I was absolutely able to stay a little bit more even keel. And because we like to look at things a little bit differently, maybe the graph setup is there. I pulled this from someone in the app, and I loved it ever since because it gives you the high energy feelings, the low energy feelings, kind of the more positive ones, the negative ones, overlaying with what I think was a really clever way of kind of the color association. So I do always associate low energy with some of those cooler tones. That's what I use to kind of calm myself. A lot of my spaces are cool tones for that reason. So I think it's very creative and I like the idea there. But you can also repurpose your mood track. Maybe you want to have it as more of daily affirmation. Maybe you want to track anxiety levels, depression levels, energy levels. And just again, because they're 1 to 6, you can kind of add in different scales, but you don't have to use them all. So here are a bunch of different examples. So someone at the top is acknowledging the panic attacks, either seeing kind of the levels of how they had them or how often they had them. The one you get the different types of emotions as well as energy levels. So maybe your energy levels is tied to your emotions. I also think it's great when people will include what day of the week it is. So obviously, I feel like it's that generalization that everyone's happy on a Friday because you're heading into the weekends, but maybe it doesn't quite trend that way. So it's always interesting to acknowledge it. Maybe you're looking at a ooh, physical care tracker, or you want to track activities, or maybe you're looking for a mood booster tracker. So these are the things that are going to put you in a better mood. Maybe you're on a particular health journey, so it's a food tracker. Maybe it's an energy tracker, book tracker. And I do like the one in the bottom middle. It's an intentions tracker. So this is one of those kind of setting yourself up for a little bit of success, kind of Hansel and Gretel style. These are your breadcrumbs. So this is your opportunity to use your tracker to go back and review those intentions. And maybe you pull some of those intentions on a daily basis to that weekly spread pages a little bit further in the journal. So you can absolutely help yourself as you kind of check in with all of these. And maybe it's not something that you do every month. Maybe it is just something that you do every once in a while so that you can reconnect with the journal. Because what's great about this is if it doesn't need it this month, you can do it next month, or you can try again and do something different. But sometimes it certainly works to kind of reconnect with your journal. And then maybe you want to go inside out style with the tracking of the different feelings of the emotion, the idea there. Maybe it's a midday check-in, a night check-in with kind of each of those corresponding things. Or maybe you just don't even really want to track your mood at all. The bottom right one, Leanne, who I thought was in the chat, if not, she does come to these pretty regular. She does her own business. And so she has turned this into a business habits tracker instead of a mood tracker. So I know habits, we're getting ready to do a habit tracker, but that's different than these business habits. So it's all the things she wants to do to support that. And Alyssa, love to see that. The left with the inside out. Was that actually what you intended to do? Because I think we've all just assumed it's been inside out. And then maybe it's a mood tracker and creativity or some sort of summer related one. And then I know the stress trackers there as the opportunities to help yourself with these suggestions to de-escalate in those type of things as you're feeling it. Spending tracker, I think usually comes up every now and then. So this is one of the versions that we have of that. And when it comes to kind of a tough day versus a great day, I liked this kind of elegant simplicity of it as well, is because sometimes you just focus or hyperfixate on the negative days or the tough days, but then you actually realize that you probably didn't have as many tough days as you thought you did. There's just what you remember the most. Or maybe you want to embrace some of those rest concepts. So that's where it becomes a self-care tracker. So I'm going to give you some time to work on your mood tracker. So let us know if you're using it as a mood tracker or are you repurposing it into something else? And we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Appreciate seeing all of the different ways to do it. It was really nice to see how you're either repurposing it or how you're including it that way. So thank you for sharing. So now please join us on page 11 in your July journal with that habit tracker. And so again, this is another way to support um, your kind of start, stop, and continue intentions there. And so you can absolutely use it again as a habit tracker. You can use the theme of independence, or you can use the theme of your word of the year, your word of the month, or kind of that focus there. Or you can continue habits from last month. I am a creature of habit. So I absolutely have the same habits and I have the same ones each time. And the way I have always looked at the monthly habit tracker is these are some things that I want to do every single day. But I haven't quite quantified how much I'm going to do it that day. That is what I then carry over into my habits and activities tracker on the weekly pages. But it's something that you want to do there. And as always, you do not have to fill out every single line. And really, what I've kind of leaned into when it comes to the habits for the month is kind of the things that I want to spend time on. I want to have them take up a little bit more time, a little bit more space, and kind of including them in my routines. So I've certainly made this as more of like a celebration of my routines, as well as, again, a really great way to kind of track it. And so if you need habit inspirations, these are always a good starting point. What I also like is just you guys come up with such amazing colors. And I know if you've come to my stuff before, you've seen these examples, but I think they just show a lot. The one on the left, really I like is because unfortunately this individual did get COVID, and that just kind of threw a big wrench into their habits and activities for the month. So I love the ability to kind of acknowledge that so that it's not necessarily that you're not accomplishing something because you just don't want to, is because something else has gotten in the way. And it's also the same thing of the one on the right acknowledges the vacation that they have. And so there are times that maybe this is exactly what you need on vacation. Maybe there are times that you're like, I don't even want to think about anything on vacation. So you can kind of keep it in that category. Same thing with identifying each of the days of the week. We've also seen them include different moon cycles, tracking their different cycles. So you can certainly do that one there. Ah, Alyssa, excellent. Um, you have some great examples. And so again, she's created a scoring system. And so you can always kind of come up with your own rubric in that kind of capacity. Again, it's maybe you want to break it down into a morning routine and an evening routine. And again, you don't have to use all of the lines. Maybe you just use a few. I like the visual representation of the different shapes. It comes out to a really, really lovely mandala. Those always look great for some of our extremely creative individuals. And at the same time, I feel like this particular habit tracker kind of goes hand in hand with that intentions tracker. So this is what I consider a habit tracker focused on the journal, because the first one they call it their dailies. So that is usually within the app or some kind of Silk and Sonder focus thing. So it's the daily affirmations, the daily rituals, the some sort of reflection. Then it is a check-in with the gratitude log, check-in with their mood and creativity tracker, and then focusing on their weekly habits and goals. So another opportunity to help you help yourself in providing that support there. And I know the one on the right is Bailey's. I've pulled that example before because I like the idea of helping yourself, helping future you. And that is, I am certainly currently experiencing a little bit of decision-making fatigue. So the idea that you want to do each of these habits every single day, but you've already listed what those habits consist of. So when it comes to nourish, here's your already list. You get to pick exactly from it. So instead of having to come up with anything off the top of your head, you've narrowed it down to three. Same thing with the physical care and the replenish options that are there. You already have it listed and you already have an idea of what you can do or what you want to do within that realm. And then maybe you want to focus on celebration, or maybe you have something specific in that month that you want to kind of accomplish, or another way to kind of embrace or repurpose that idea. So with this one, it was I celebrate my body when and then kind of came up with all those habits and activities. Or you can obviously theme it. I like the one on the right. Obviously, it was from St. Patrick's Day. So you can kind of use all of those things. I think it's great. And again, these can be as visual support as you want them, or they can absolutely be, um, as Jeno, one of our other facilitators, said, she's a pen girly. So maybe it is just your pen and your paper, and you do what you want there. And again, who doesn't love iconography? So the idea of have you incorporated a bucket list item or habits and activities there? I don't necessarily put the adventure list or the bucket list on my habit tracker. I repurpose my expense tracker or my sleep tracker to kind of incorporate that, but I've really been loving and embracing the bucket list and the adventure list. And on the flip side, we all love the winter hygge. So why not practice some of the summer hygge? And I think it's all those kind of very simplistic things that we already kind of do, lighting a candle in the evening. Sometimes it has to be the citronella if you're sitting outside with the mosquitoes, especially if you want to dine al fresco. And then embracing kind of some of those seasonal summer treats that I feel like are iconic with the summer, anything fruity, anything popsicle. Love all those and embracing the theme of ice cream month. So you can certainly use a lot of these here. So I'm going to give you some time to work on those habit trackers. I'd love to hear what habits you're working on, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. So that kind of completes all of the trackers and the reflection and the intention page. But I would like to take a minute to acknowledge some of the other pages that are repurposed. As I said, I repurposed the sleep tracker. That usually becomes a fun playlist or a playlist idea. That's where I find some of these very quirky wacky mashups, but I love them. But I keep track of all that just so I can have that there as something fun. We have another gratitude log. I know the ta-da log was quite fun last time, so maybe you want to kind of continue that celebratory trend. And another one that I know I repurpose often is the expense tracker. I don't particularly like the setup of it, so I definitely cover it up and write something else in there. So I would love to see in the chat if you repurpose any of those pages, especially for folks, because I feel like that's a common question that we see in the chat, in the app of those kind of different things, how they repurpose them. Same thing with any of the blank pages. So obviously one of the blank pages I use is my mind map. And then other things that I've seen it done, people really like the bingo boards. So they do kind of a full month bingo board in that capacity. So we love seeing all those, or as another way to do kind of daily affirmations, daily reflections, all of those things. So if you're needing inspiration, definitely check out the chat for some of those other pages. And then, as always, speaking of pages, we would love to continue the conversation in the Silk and Sonder app. So we would love to see your pages if you wish to share them with everybody. They're amazing inspiration. We get such wonderful ideas. You guys are such creative inspiration. And so we repurpose a lot of those things, and we certainly love that. And Bailey is going to start popping into that chat. The different things when it comes to very specific offerings. Here is another slide for the AI coach, which is Jenny. She, I know, is fantastic and has worked for a lot of people. I will also go back to the beginning slide that had the QR code for the current discount. So you'll be able to see that there. And I'll switch these around next time so that we have it. Here's kind of a list of my playlists. I include those at every social, and I do save all of my playlists from all of my previous socials. So if you want inspiration there, those are always there. And as Bailey had mentioned, she and I will be back tomorrow for a weekly setup. So it will be our first weekly setup for July. So we'll be setting up our mind map as well as continuing to dive into independence. So thank you everybody for joining us. It goes by so fast, even with the extra time for the setups. But I certainly look forward. I am not ready to give up on June yet. My birthday is on Sunday, June 29th. So I'm not done with June yet. You guys can be done with it, but I'm not done with June yet. So July is just gonna have to wait until the 1st. And this is one of those absolutely like strict lines I draw in the sand. So thank you everybody for joining us. It has been a wonderful time. You guys provide such amazing inspiration. We hope to see you at future events, and we will have an amazing rest of your evening. We'll see you this weekend. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
It's a good day. We got sunlight we can't chase. We can see where it takes us. Writing stories that shape us. It's a good time to find a little magic in the moonlight. All that we can discover in this sky full of wonder. We got everything beneath our feet, we see it all. Born for adventure, made to run free. Days we'll remember, with the world to see. Always ready to run when the wild's calling. Ready to run and we won't stop. We were born for adventure. Born for adventure. Take a look looking out, we see it all with fresh eyes. There's a hope that you can take with the dawn of a new day. We got everything beneath our feet, we see it all. Born for adventure, made to run free. Days we'll remember with the world to see. Always ready to run when the wild's calling. Ready to run and we won't stop. We were born, born, born for adventure. Born for adventure. It's a good day. We got sunlight we can't chase. We could follow the ocean. We could live in the moment. Born for adventure, made to run free. Days we'll remember with the world to see.